And
What happened?
yeah.
I'm not doing jujitsu anymore. I did a hard stop on that.
Were you doing jujitsu every day?
I was doing it maybe like 3, 4 times a week.
No way. It's a lot.
Yeah. So I got really into it for maybe like 6 months. And I
Yeah.
feel like I got everything that I needed out of it. It got to the point where I realized all the professors, like all the black belts, were injured in some way. And like I made a few close calls where people just didn't know what they were doing. And it's just like fucking up
Oh,
leg and like all this stuff. And I'm like, I don't want to be crippled by this. Like I learned enough to the point where if I'm involved in something, I like know how to handle myself. And that's kind of what I wanted to get out of it anyway, you know? So
my roommate does
I
jujitsu.
know.
Yeah, Jacob. That's so funny that you guys like. Have you talked about that with him?
Yeah, we had a full-on conversation about it last Valley Mentality thing.
Okay, that's
He's
awesome.
super into it.
He is. The thing is, though, I kind of respect this. Is he only does it like twice a week, I think,
Mm,
at most. And he's like, honestly, that's like enough. Like you get such an intense workout. And
yeah.
for him, I think it's more for like the practice of it rather than defense. But I don't know.
Yeah, I think 2 times a week is a good way to go. Cause then you're not like once you get into the 3 to 4 times, it's just like you're so much more prone to injuries. You're tired. You're like not paying as much attention.
Yeah.
It,
Have you still been in the gym outside of that too? No.
yeah. Well, that's the thing. And that's why I had no time before because I was still working out like 4 times a week. And then on top of that, the jujitsu stuff. And so now it's like I'm strictly working out and my schedule's way better. But yeah, dude, it would be go to jujitsu, go for a workout, and then that'd be like 3 hours out of my day. And I got to the point where
Yeah.
I'm like, fuck that. It's not
To
worth
come play pickleball.
it. Yeah. Trying
Not
to
kidding.
Yeah, try not to add stuff right now, but respect. You know
Fair.
what's
I'm just
crazy?
saying.
My other really close friend is super into pickleball, and he started as like a tennis player, and he's been hyping it up. So I got you in one ear, him in
Funny.
the other, and it's like I don't know. One of these days, I'll come out for one of them.
I also say that in the sense that I probably do pickleball once, maybe twice a week.
Yeah,
It's just a perfect balance to also the gym. And then it's not hard on your body. It's not a contact sport. There's all different levels that play. Very social, quick turnaround on games. Eh.
yeah. Hey, you know what I have picked up once a week is going to the movie theater. That's something that's super new because, dude, for real, like 3 years since I've seen the last like a film in the theaters. It's been that long. And I think it's because of COVID and like whatever. I felt like, yeah, I can catch the movie here. But dude, the experience of going to the movies, I saw Evil Dead, the latest one that came
My
out.
cousin liked it a lot. I think is that what it's called? Evil Dead or like Dead
Evil
Rises or
Dead.
something?
Yeah, Evil Dead Rises.
Okay. Yeah.
Unbelievably good, bro. Like I got genuinely scared at this one part, and I'm like numb to this stuff. I watched so many horror movies, but I forgot how fun it was to see a movie with an audience. It's the best.
Yeah. It can be good, right? It's a
Yeah.
fun experience.
So I got an AMC pass. I'm gonna see Beau is Afraid this weekend,
Nice.
which tanked at the box office, but I'm an
Did
Ari
it?
Aster fan. Yeah.
Yeah. For some reason everyone's talking about that movie.
Yeah, it's like 3 hours long.
Interesting.
So it'll be a marathon, but I'm there for Ari.
Yeah, dude. I know A24 did that. It's funny. I've been working on this value mentality stuff, and something that came to my mind in general for all of my like artistic endeavors is I want to be able to do like A24 type stuff. And I don't mean just as far as like an indie movie that is high production value. I just mean like in the general aesthetic, which they don't have just one, but they look at things that it might be mundane and they take a really specific view on it. Like even for Euphoria, it's like the subjects that they knew about, like the high school football player. They go into like this backstory and like crazy, like oh, well, you didn't know this, and it's crazy, you know. And then, for instance, they have a book I'm just getting right now. I just ordered it on Florida, and it's not the Florida that you think about, like in the news, politics, and everything. It's the beautiful, charming, funky sides of Florida that are like an
Right.
amazing setting. And I'm doing that same thing with value
Yeah,
mentality
it's
about
really
Valley.
similar.
I'm taking something that typically been written off, and I'm trying to find the stylistic, beautiful elements of it and everything. And I've done that naturally in all my stuff, but I'm thinking that's even more to like what we've talked about. Like when we make movies, and you're making a movie, like it's gotta be taking something that people have thought about and doing a completely different angle on it. And
Yeah.
like in a beautiful way, you know, and that's got to come in the writing. I saw a movie that A24 produced that like I'll tell you the name of it in a second because I don't want people to jump to conclusions or you, but it was the most beautiful aesthetic and it looked so good and it had this like tropical water stuff, but then the story lacked a lot, but at least they had a great aesthetic. It was called Waves. And
I
apparently,
haven't seen it.
right, yeah, I watched about an hour of it and I'm like, this is the most boring
So no
it
plot, but just visually, it was really specific and
plot ended up actually in some ways being more story driven than I expected, but it was just boring and cliche, done in the most beautiful aesthetic ever. Like, which is something, and like the acting was obviously good and stuff, but
yeah.
it's not. And so it's just from like a stylistic thing. It's a fun lens to look through. So now I'm even thinking about like we're doing TikToks for Value Mentality and gonna be YouTubes as well. And I'm thinking like, okay, well, how do I take that same lens of like getting this beautiful, like kind of shocking, interesting angle on stuff? You know, you can't just be bland.
I feel like you stumbled on it with doing that commercial, the intersection of story and stylistic stuff. It's exciting to hear you want to, you're thinking about TikToks and like YouTube and stuff. I
Thanks,
feel like
man.
you could find that merge between
We
the
have to.
stuff you've already done, but then adding on top of that a story.
Thank you. I was obviously always really heavy on story. Like you can't lack that. That's first.
Yeah.
But and like jokes and all that stuff, it's got to have substance. But then also, you know, we coincidentally kind of done it with everything. But anyway, dude, all right, now that I said that whole spiel, I'm gonna ask about you, but first I want to tell you, hot off the press, I just had a big audition yesterday, funny enough.
How'd it go?
So I think it went good. I think it went good. I worked with the coach again,
Cool.
working with him weekly, and bro, two long scenes, and got in there, put myself on tape, and like my biggest thing now, and we've talked about this is, you know, whether I'm actually an 8 out of 10 on an acting scale or not or whatever, is we're trying to get me from an 8 to a 10 in my own words. He didn't say that, but I said that. And the biggest thing probably is like being so clear on every little thing in the script, every little choice, you know, every little thing that's being said, like having, you know, such a context for it all so that I'm not faking anything anymore. And
Right.
then two, because like it's all there. This is how it felt after acting it. It's all there. It's like chiseling a statue. Once you get into like really knowing, understanding what every little thing means and being able to play on that and like communicate that, then there's no acting. Then it's like you every moment is charged. Like you have to be living in that. And it's honestly listening how you would be in that moment, you know? And like it's not forcing anything more. It's not faking it. I really have to listen. And that doesn't mean just going, oh yeah. It's not faking listening. It's like genuinely listening how the character would be in that moment and really making sure that you're not jumping to conclusions in your mind when you're acting.
Right.
Um, and when the camera's on you, that's not the easiest thing to do, but it's also like the only place to hide. So it's how did it go? Like it went sick. Dude, yeah. It's you learn so much every time you shoot, man. I did like a couple takes of the first scene, and you know, it's funny, the first one of this thing ended up being kind of the strongest. Specific choices, really committed, great listening, and maybe I had one moment that like wasn't exactly what I wanted to be though. So it was like, and then the second one was more like maybe solid, but not as like good. And then the third one I had like a fuck you take, like just fun, did it. And it's funny, a lot of times in my history, whenever I do those and I just have fun, and a lot of times what happens with those is you go with the spontaneity you feel in the moment to try stuff, which is like a beautiful thing and it feels the best probably, but a lot of times they don't look as good when I do them. They just it's not as real, it's not as specific. Maybe that says that my instincts are wrong a lot of the times. So yeah.
But you thought the first take was the best.
Yeah, first take my coach and I decided was like the best.
How many takes did you do?
I probably did like that one four, and I think I probably did one take before the legit first take, but like messed up or something, and then it was like the second, but first legit one, and then the second one long scene. I did again that I had the lines pretty much down, but we used, he held the lines up for me again, and I just keep my eyes like in the same spot, and I really just, you have to still
So
be.
he's got like them on cue cards or what?
He just like the camera's here and he holds up the lines right there and he has it so dialed. I think he does this for a lot of people. He just keeps feeding them.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's the way to go. Because a lot of times actors are just trying to think of like their line and that checks them totally out of it. You know,
Does,
the amount
but
of
he
time that you get, how long did you have before you had to shoot?
2 days.
Dude, that's such bullshit. Like 2 days. I know that's average, but it's also bullshit. I feel like people should get like a week or something.
Well, you know what it makes me think though is like because a lot of times you do get the lines like the night before, especially when you're shooting a
Yeah.
TV show. And I'm like, dude, you have to know your lines so well for a long scene. Cause he showed me one of his students' self-tapes, and it was like such a long scene, and they were so in the world for so long, like caught up. And to be really immersed in it when it's like 6 pages in, something crazy, like, dude, that means you're not trying to think of your lines. You're still just like listening and charged. There's a lot. Anyway,
Yeah.
how are you doing, bro?
I'm good, man. I'm stoked to hear that you're on this high from this audition. That's dope. I am working on getting my first indie off the ground. And Ken and I have we have a history of like thinking of a bunch of different projects and juggling a lot of things at once, but we're really starting to dial in on this one project because it'll take both of our full focus to get it off the ground, released, distributed. And our goal with this one is to see it through the entire finish. We want to get it, we're going to go the crowdfunding route for this one. And so
Mhm.
we're figuring out how to build an audience. We obviously have our established audience on YouTube, but we're finding people who are specifically interested in what we're going to be making, like mostly on Facebook, which has been surprising for me because I like deleted my Facebook account. But when
Yeah.
it comes to transferring to like crowdfunding an audience and people who are going to watch the films,
Facebook business is big.
yeah, Facebook is the biggest out of everything. So I'm back on Facebook, but strictly for like the horror stuff. Cultivating an audience, getting ready, learning how to have the most effective crowdfunding campaign. There's all this stuff. What is an aggregator? What's a sales agent? It's like all this, the ins and outs of which it can sound complex, but it really isn't. Once you start drilling into your head, like there are really just a few things to this. And the biggest shock to me when I first came to LA was realizing that most of the people, most of the gatekeepers, the people who hold the keys to this industry, they're not creatives. Most of the people are, financiers or whatever. They dabbled a little in entertainment and then now they hold this massive power. And so I want to take the power back for myself and make my own thing.
It's like what you're saying, like doing the creative stuff, but then also when that moment arises where you have to make those business decisions, like my dad's had to do a bunch of times,
Yeah.
knowing the options and having that, how can you kind of like shortcut that experience so that, and I love hearing that you're doing it so that that'll help me just inherently, but
Yeah.
then I'll come to you, but B, I'm hoping, and already you're giving me, the recommendations on where to look for that stuff too, because I'm going to make movies as well, and like doing that, you don't want that to come up and just be like, well, I either have this distributor or this one, and what are the pros and cons? And I've seen what happened on my dad's movie, and they just have to like they ended up you end up going a little blind, and I think on some level it's probably always like that, but
Yeah.
want to have a community of people ideally around you that can, you know, have opinions on these things, but then also you have to be able to cite specific examples of deals, how they've all worked together, and figure out what's the best option in all these different
Totally.
avenues.
And bro, I would be really curious to pick your dad's brain about his experience on that film because
You
I'm
got to
sure
do it.
it's a lot.
Yeah.
But I have friends who are like, yeah, man, like I'm gonna raise like the 300K, like 500K, $1 million. It's like, why? Like part of this is me figuring out like what is the budget appropriate for your film that will lead to the most success. Like there's a lot of people. I mean, dude, I feel like a lot of this too is tied up in ego and just ignorance. Like people feel like
Yeah.
if they get like 300K raise, like maybe they could do that. Like maybe they're an influencer or whatever, or
Right. Right.
they're able to. It doesn't matter if you're able to. Like you should have an appropriate budget for your thing. Luckily, the stuff that I'm interested in, like genre stuff, is it has the biggest upside. Like I can make something like there's the potential with a horror movie to make something for like 20K and make $100 million. That doesn't exist in any other genre,
Right.
so I have that working for me. But yeah, dude, I mean, I think it's just about educating yourself. And I don't enjoy learning about this shit, but I got to the place where I'm like, I have to in order to achieve what I want and not get
Yeah.
taken advantage
And
of.
it's the stuff ideally that is like the most applicable to what you're going to be doing specifically.
Yeah.
It's not like you're just like aimless about like, oh no, business 101. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, this is practical stuff that like you're going into. So you got to know the ins and outs, and maybe it'll make your path a little less complicated.
Totally, bro. And I'm also in this process, I've also humbled myself too. I had an ego. I had an ego of like, oh, like a short got over 1 million views. Now, like I'm the shit. Like now I'm gonna do an A24 movie. That's not how it works. Like, first, I wanna get on Tubi. Like I can make a shit ton of money off Tubi if my film lands there. And I now know how to get there. It's like it's just people are just in this delusion because they're not taught or they haven't sought out the information as to how to get to that place.
I remember it's so funny when you mentioned that. It reminds me there's like this classic lesson that I think it was like the old Greek mythology or something. This king came from like he was like a shepherd and he got anointed to be king. Like the king said, "You're going to be the next king somehow, some way." But he didn't take him to the palace then. Like he had to stay out in the in the fields and everything and tend to the sheep. But he knew he was going to become king, and he somehow like didn't brag about it or anything. But one thing led to another, and it ended up years went by before anything happened, and he just sat there being like, "Well, what the hell am I supposed to do with this information? It's almost worse that I know I'm going to be king because now." But then I think he went to war and he like stepped up in war and then he got brought up to be king. And the moral of the story is that sometimes the big thing happens and you think you deserve something better. It's not that you don't deserve something better. It's that you have to learn to tread water with a purpose. And like you said, it's like that being humble. And even when you become the king, even when you get that A24 movie and stuff, staying humble,
Yeah,
staying on the
bro.
hustle, being at ease, helping other people. Yeah.
That's huge, man. I love that. I think I mean, bro, what's his name? I don't know how humble he is or not, but you can look at a guy like the Whiplash guy. Who's that director? You know what I'm talking
Chaz,
about?
yeah, Damien Chazelle.
Yeah. Damien, again, I don't know how humble he is or not, but there's just a lesson from external point of view.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like you put like, I don't know how much Babylon costs, like $500 million or some shit. And then
Yeah.
it was like the
Infinity.
biggest box office bomb of all time after like the high of these films. And that just goes to show, like, again, I don't know how Damien is,
Yeah.
but if you have a huge ego and then you have a film like that, that shit would wreck you, you know? So it's just
High
about,
highs, low lows.
yeah, that's it. Riding the waves.
And yeah, it's all about taking the lessons that you're learning through this, trying to process them, trying to understand what the takeaway is, and then bringing that into the success too. Because when you get big, you got to work harder to stay humble too. That's its own battle. Yeah, it's not good if you just your head blows up and you drink the Kool-Aid and stuff. Then you end up
Oh,
probably losing too.
dude, then you're your material is going to suck. From me, the films could start to, like, quality wise. There was a story, James Wan and Lee Winnell, after they went out with Saw. I think I probably told this a million times, but they
Always
made
comes
a shit
back to
ton of-
them.
always, bro, dude. The day that I meet those guys, it's fucking incredible. Yeah, the first film made like millions of dollars, and then they went on to Dead Silence, rushed the process because everyone was talking in their ear like, yo, you're the shit. Like, everything you hear about Hollywood was true. People were letting them in their offices. They were telling them they're the best thing ever. And then they made a film that wasn't as good. So I think it is super important to stay humble. I also want to say that I cannot believe that film schools aren't teaching this shit. That's crazy to me. And because
Business stuff or the mental health stuff?
the business stuff. I mean, yeah, mental health too, obviously. But
They
like,
teach the business. They teach the business stuff.
do they?
Yeah. USC Film School has so many classes on like the business of film, and probably to a fault, right?
You think?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, first time. The only point of reference I'm taking it from is the fact that, dude, the amount of, like, if you look at everyone who's graduated a film school, like the percentage of people that
Right.
have the right head on their shoulders, or, I mean, dude, most people, to be honest, the people that I've met from USC, and again, maybe this is just my experience, but they have the reference point of like a short film costs $10,000. It's like all of these different, and then they don't know how to get a feature off the ground. That's my own personal experience with it, just with people that I've come across. But they totally could have those classes. I just feel like, look,
What you're saying is they don't know the hustle, bro.
they don't know the hustle.
That you can't teach unless you have a sick teacher that's
I
like
mean,
a
that's true. That's true. But like, I'm also taking it from my drama school. And I can only speak to Syracuse, right? Syracuse drama teaches nothing about the business. Nothing. And I feel like even in an acting school, you should learn how to produce your own shit. I feel like that should be required. Because
my
otherwise,
acting
you have the
school.
whims of,
My acting school tried to do business classes and stuff. And my point is, school can kind of only take you so far because the reality is you are sort of removed, and it just you could only make it so applicable. Like that's why my whole view on like an MBA, a master's in business, has kind of been skewed of like, well, that just doesn't take the place of like actual business experience. But that's why so many programs see that and they're making you have actual business experience, like real jobs while you're going through it and stuff. Point made on your part. Like, I'm sure it's going to be ongoing. How do you make a simulated experience that gets you the closest to working out in the real world in school? And film schools are getting closest to that. My acting school got closer to that. It's not like they just do theater anymore. You know, they're trying to make it so that you're like a real working actor prepared for the industry. But I think what you're saying too is like the fact that someone that you study, that guy's videos and everything, that stuff is so applicable to like hustling, raising money and stuff. And I know there's some better film programs that maybe it's just like one class or another thing, but they force you to like raise money, do your own film, all this stuff. It's just I think some of these kids that come out of there just don't have talent. They don't know business. They don't have imagination.
talent in like creative too,
No, I mean more talent like with like
business sense.
achieving things. Yeah.
I will
Being
say, bro, if they would have removed all of the classes that I did with like rolling around the fucking floor, acting like a clown. We had clown classes, bro. I don't know about your
I did
acting
too. I
program.
did too. We did too.
If, bro, fuck that shit. Like, replace all that with how do you make money in this career? Like, I feel like, because also our conversation last week, the dream, and I have this dream too, is to, obviously cherry on top is everyone knows your name and like you're doing fucking huge blockbuster movies, obviously. But at its base level, it's making a living doing what you love. Yeah. And so like, there's just, there's so much focus on like the craft, I feel like. And I am talking in broad strokes. I don't know if USC has a business class.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
And A lot of times they don't even do the craft well, as we're talking about.
Exactly, bro. Exactly. Yeah. You know what's crazy? Film schools, if you would take that $200,000 that tuition costs, that's USC money. Actually, it's more expensive at USC. I think it's like 60K a year, which is fucking insane. But if you were to take that money and make 4 horror features, like, dude, think about the position you
Horror bucks. Horror bucks.
horror bucks.
Yeah.
That's what we're
You said
calling it.
you said USC bucks before. I'm saying horror bucks now.
Yeah.
Anyway, continue.
Oh, I mean, think about how much further your career would be, you know?
You've done it already. You've done, I mean, the fact that you did all the YouTube videos and were success, like that. I mean, what if you can teach that? I think it'd be cool to have like a program where you say, all right, our number one thing, you came to school. You didn't necessarily have to come to school. Most people are doing it without school, but you came here. So we might as well figure out how to make the most of your time. You want to be a filmmaker, you want to make something, or you want to perform. Let's figure out how to make something that showcases the best in you, your style, your aesthetic, your imagination, and maybe puts you on the map so that you get gigs out of school. That's it.
Yeah.
Where it's like my school and everything, they try to do that on some level, but it's just doesn't, the stakes aren't high enough.
And I do think you're in that protected education environment. You don't really think about the real world. And also, dude, that's a great point. I would, if I was like in charge of school, which I'll never do, that's not my thing. But like, if that were my position, I would tell everyone you have to make like 100 shorts.
Yeah.
In like a year. That forces you to learn how to do it. What's crazy to me is people out of USC or wherever, I don't know how many shorts they do in like a 4-year program, but they have like the one thesis. Let's say they do like 3 short films. That's a pretty good bet, I feel, right? If they do like 3
You need
short
some skin in the game. I love that because you've learned so much by doing all these shorts and everything. Yeah. They should be forced to learn like that, but as if they're like you, like trying to get an 80/24 job out of it. Like
I agree, bro, 100%. But they feel like after doing 3 shorts at a film school, they come out and then they expect to get that A24 deal. That's the fucking crazy part of it. And just being on the other side of like 100 shorts and like learning about the business or whatever, it's like, it's such a delusion. But I don't fault any of them for it. I feel like it's the environment that they're in.
Yeah, it's par for the course. But the industry doesn't give a shit about anyone, dude. It's crazy. Like you listen to guys like David Spade and Dana Carvey talk, you know, in a different sphere, but they're like, okay, I just did this one big thing that got a lot of attention. That just bought me 6 more months in show business. That's it. That's it.
Yeah. I love those examples too, because they're not A-listers. They've had a really long career. And
they've been like, A-listers.
They have. Yeah, they have.
Oh my gosh. And by the way, now they kind of in the comedy world, they had a huge comeback because of this podcast.
Oh yeah.
And yeah. Oh my gosh. And now they're all performing at the biggest clubs again and everything. But their reasoning is like, dude, it's basically you're like sinking in quicksand. That's what the industry is.
Yeah.
Figure out how to like throw a lasso.
Yeah. The only thing that I can control as a filmmaker is output, quality of output too. But for me, it's mostly about quantity, because I put stuff out and it doesn't hit that I expect is going to hit. I put stuff out that I'm just like, I don't give a fuck. And then it hits. So I feel like that 1-to-10 ratio thing is real. People say if you're producing shit, 1 out of your 10 films are going to hit. And so if you can start getting those numbers up, Blumhouse has gotten to the place where it's like they have so many films that you don't ever hear about. They end up on VOD and iTunes and whatever because they're not fit for a theatrical release. But they have so many films they put in production, hundreds of films, that like the 10 that really hit are the ones that keep them afloat. So I think it's about
a lot more control as a director, producer for sure than just an actor. Yeah.
Yes. Well, yeah, unless you're an actor and you treat yourself as a producer too.
Which producer. That's a producer.
Yeah. You just say you're a producer and then you're a producer.
Or you have to do the job, but yeah.
Yeah, but it's about shifting that mindset of, dude, I even switched out my Instagram handle. Instead of film director, it's film producer. That comes first.
I like it.
It's just important for me to be thinking of myself in that way, you
I
know?
totally know what you mean. No, I think that's big for me as an actor too. I already had been thinking of myself as a writer, and now I think, yeah, I'm going into that like producer. I think of myself as a creative and entrepreneur, as
Yeah.
douchey.
Hell yeah. It's like, why limit yourself? I feel like, unfortunately, the reality is you think of yourself just as an actor, and then like automatically you're at the whims of whoever to pick you. Like, that's the nature. If you're strictly an actor, you are waiting to be picked for an opportunity, unless you put yourself in the driver's seat, which you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, being an actor, if you can be just an actor, is like there's this rock star element of it. It's pretty badass. But I mean, I don't want to just act either. So
Yeah, dude. Bro, start with Jay Horton, man. I'm telling you, that guy's legit.
Jay Horton is his name.
Yeah.
Write down. I'd like to. Jay.
So you seen anything good lately? Let's talk movies.
Talk movies. I concur. No,
No.
nothing.
All right,
You?
I'm gonna go. It's Evil Dead, right? We already touched on it, but
Yeah.
there was a moment in there where something I learned from it is like the skeletal structure of your antagonist has to be like, you can put makeup on anyone, but this woman who acted this like creepy ass mom, her face was so like distinctive that then when they put that makeup on her, she's fucking terrifying, bro. Like, you pull up stills of that film and she's fucking
You're seeing the actress already is like kind of a bizarre looking person.
already. She's been a model. She was like an Australian model, but something about like
Facial
cheekbones, just the
structure.
way the whole thing, the way she smiles, fucking
Totally get it.
scary. Yeah,
Yeah, some of those like models like have like very specific looks that like kind of translate to horror movies.
totally. I feel like, and or is it Anna Taylor-Joy? You know
Yeah.
what I'm talking about?
Yep. Yeah. Of course.
She is such a distinctive face. She would probably be good in horror.
Oh, totally. She has she could be like the damsel, like Black Swan or something, and like getting like, oh, well, I don't know.
Totally. She was
That's
she was great in that chef movie. I forget what
Chef.
it's not
Oh, the menu.
The Menu. Yeah.
Yeah, she's always brilliant.
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
excited.
what's next for you, bro? This week, what's coming up?
Thanks for asking.
You just finished audition. I saw the drop on Valley. What else?
Yeah, bruv. I'm ordering more inventory for Valley Mentality. Um, we're filming these TikTok videos Saturday.
You started a
Cool.
TikTok. Have you ever done that?
I did over the pandemic. I did all my impression videos. Do you recall at all?
I remember you telling me about that. I don't think I ever saw him.
Well, I
Get
posted
traction.
Instagram as well.
Oh
You
yeah,
might-
bro. I remember on Instagram. I remember
Yeah.
when. I
Okay.
forget who you were doing. Yeah, but it was really funny.
Thank you.
Yeah, dude. Why don't you pick that up again? Do you have any interest, or just Valley stuff?
I do have an interest, and actually, I've been putting together more stand-up comedy material too.
There's some people who've blown up by just doing impressions. I feel like if you had some kind of scenario literally in your room, you take that super expensive camera you just bought and just like shoot like a 2-minute thing, bro. That's all you need.
It is all you need. I got to do it. I look. Anyway. Yeah, I'm doing it, and
What's going on? It's just a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff you're thinking about. Like,
it is a lot of stuff I'm thinking of. But anyway, that's good. What about you? What do you got going this weekend?
oh, I'm seeing Beau is Afraid. Hype about that. I'm the only person. I booked my ticket, and it's like the only person in the auditorium. I don't know why this movie tanked, but I'm gonna find out. By the way, I love watching movies alone. Autumn doesn't like going to the movie theaters for some reason. She likes chilling here. So that's like the best time in the world for me. Just literally whole screen, got my snacks. It's a good time. So I'm
Sounds
gonna do that. I'm gonna continue to hustle and try to get this audience locked down. I found people who are into like creepy old ladies. It's that specific, and they're gonna be a direct tie into crowdfunding my thing, watching my thing, all the above.
yeah. The old lady fetish community.
That's it. We all got it. There,
That's all.
down deep.
Dude, I'm excited for you.
Yes, sir.
Watch the videos from that guy too, Jay Horton.
All right, brother. Have a